in Politics, a conversation with Premier Brad Wall.
Good evening and welcome to our year-end interview with Premier Brad Wall. I'm Chantal Huber.
And I'm Dan McIntosh. Over the next half hour, we are going to explore the successes and challenges in Saskatchewan politics over the past year.
Of course, we want to start with the election this past fall.
Sure.
The Saskatchewan Party scoring a major victory, and a lot of NDP MLAs that were, long time in the legislature were defeated. A lot of people were somewhat surprised by that. Did it even surprise you?
Yes, it did. We were hopeful for a good result, but I can tell you right up until the weekend before the election, our research, our pollsters were giving us a number on the high end that was not as high a number of seats as we finished with on the 7th of November. So I think I attribute it to a lot of hard work by a lot of candidates in very tough constituencies. We know both parties worked very hard, and then working to get that vote out. And so we benefited from, I think, a great team approach. And whether people won by a lot or a little, I can speak for them all because we had a session, as you know, early on in December, and I can speak for them all when I say that people felt very humbled and overwhelmed and happy to have the chance to serve.
A different feel in government for sure. 11 new MLAs. Now there's a lot of rookies on that roster. Does that present challenges for you?
Well, 11 in constituencies we didn't hold before, but Dan, we also have a total of 15 actually brand new MLAs.
That's right, yeah.
15 rookies because we had a number of incumbents who didn't run again. So it's an interesting dynamic right now. We have a good group of people that want to learn as much as they can about their duties as MLAs in the legislature. They already they've been campaigning for a year and a half. They have a great sense for the desires of their constituents. Yeah. They know they must represent them to the government. But now there's all these other duties, committee work and work in the legislature, and they're anxious to get to that. And that first first 2-week session we had in December, what I think was helpful in getting a lot of feet wet and getting MLA started down that road to learning about the system.
Do you worry about rookie mistakes in these early months and years as they take over?
Rookie mistakes, veteran mistakes. I said on election night that we're going to make mistakes. Government's just like any other organization or individual. We're going to make mistakes, and the measure will be as to how quickly we admit of them, acknowledge that they've happened, and then deal with them. And we made them in the first term, and we worked hard to respond to them in the right way. So that's going to happen on the part of MLAs, whether they're rookie or veteran MLAs. It's going to happen on the part of the government, and again, the measure will be how we respond, how we deal with them.
Now, with the NDP reduced to 9 seats, some might wonder about accountability. How do you, as Premier and Brad Wall, hold yourself accountable, but also your MLAs?
Well, we each have our accountability networks. I have mine in Swift Current. My family's pretty good at keeping things pretty grounded, and just the constituency in Swift Current is always a great reminder. It's where we live still, and it's a great reminder as to who's really the boss in all of this. I work for the constituents in Swift Current, and our government works for the people of the province. I think we're also mindful of other examples where large governments have maybe lost touch with that fundamental principle, and we've had a long talk about it as a caucus, and we'll keep reminding ourselves of the fact that this is quite an honor we have. And what happened on the 7th of November was a win, certainly for our party and for these MLAs, but we haven't earned it yet. And we worked hard in our first term to treat the mandate that way, that we won it on the 7th of November, 07, but now thereafter we needed to earn it by keeping our promises and by moving the province forward. And the same approach is what we'll take now. Is again, the 7th of November, it was the exact anniversary. We're grateful for the result. Now we're going to work hard to earn that result.
Now in politics, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, it is an adversarial system, certainly. With Dwayne Lingenfelter gone, there's the prospect of having, obviously, a new NDP leader come in. There's going to be natural friction because you're in different parties, but in today's society of tweeting and the 20-second soundbite, is it possible to have an amicable relationship at all with the opposition leader?
It is. It absolutely is. I had a good relationship with Premier Calvert, and when he was the opposition leader early on after the 07 election, and I had a good relationship with Mr. Lingenfelter too. I'm sure that'll be the case with Mr. Nielsen. I think people do want us to see us working together. There were things the NDP proposed in their platform that we're going to look at. We said that in the speech from the throne, actually. We're going to listen to ideas from everywhere, including from the opposition party. One of the first things we did in the first session that we held, the quick session of the legislature, was to work with the NDP to have a bipartisan look at a lobby registry for the province. We're one of the few that does not have a registry for lobbyists, so there should be some disclosure on the part of those lobbying for companies and other organizations. We're going to have that now, and we're going to work together with the opposition to recommend the best way to achieve that. I think bipartisanship is what people want, especially as we deal with issues that are important to the whole province, regardless of how people voted or where they live.
We have a lot more to discuss, including some of the issues that dominated discussion in this past year. We'll have more of that when we come back. Stay with us.
Welcome back to our year in review with Premier Brad Wall, and we're going to get to the issues that were discussed during the campaign. One of the phrases we heard a lot was a nickel to a dime, nickel to a dime. That was something Dwayne Lingenfelter said a lot in regards to bumping up the royalties for potash and presumably other resources. You were adamant against that. It was not a platform that you were going to lobby behind, that's for sure. Is it something that in the future, if things were to change, you would ever revisit?
Well, it wasn't entirely true. The fact we're getting a nickel on the dollar is not entirely true. If you take a look at the taxes paid, you're somewhere between 30 and 40% that these companies are paying. Here's an important fact. Today, we have the highest potash taxes in the world. And yes, we have 53% of the world's potash, but 47% of it is elsewhere. So the Calvert NDP government, to their credit, said, with our support, in fact, we called for this, let's have some temporary incentives in this high tax rate so that we could attract expansions to our province rather than in Russia or South America or wherever where the potash exists otherwise. And it worked. $12 billion worth of expansion is now underway, and more coming. New mines being talked about. Now, when the expansions are done, those companies are going to be paying at that high rate again, the highest in the world. So we said that kind of royalty stability is important to keep these expansions happening, to continue to attract this money to the province and create jobs. So at some point down the road, if production increases so much that our tax method, our potash royalty method, doesn't make sense, doesn't keep us whole as a province, we're going to have to look at it. But why you'd break a deal that was working for you and attracting billions of dollars of investment and jobs, when a bipartisan deal made by another government, and risk that momentum at a time when the world is not looking very economically stable? No, we didn't agree with it in the campaign, and we still don't agree with that.
We want to talk finances if we could. A recent report by the provincial auditor criticized the way the Wall government records and publicizes its surpluses. In fact, the report showed that we were looking at a $304 million deficit, and it's the second one in 3 years. Is this a cause for concern, or do we need to change the way we report things financially to the province? We
report both the summary financial, which is all of government. This is what the auditor would like. It's always reported on in every single quarterly report of the government. We do report the summary financials, and we report general revenue fund reporting, which is the operations of government. And that is where we have a surplus right today. In the summary financial statements, you have to include all of the Crown corporations, for example, all parts of government. And what's going to be involved in that, of course, is a lot of self-sustaining borrowing. These utilities are large companies. They borrow money to build out the system, to improve infrastructure, as all utilities do. And we think a snapshot of the operations of government, all of the ministries of government, the revenue and expenses we take in, the general revenue fund of the province, is an accurate picture of where the government proper is. And there we have 44% less debt than we did just 4 years ago. We've been paying it off, as you know, and we have a balanced budget. But we'll continue to report both so people can see either the summary or the general revenue fund.
Do we have sort of an eye to the future as to how long it will take to finish paying off our debt?
Yeah, it's a great question. We said in our campaign platform that our goal as a party, if we were to be elected, would be to continue to make significant progress. $3.8 billion is what we've paid off so far, and that is 44% of the general debt of Saskatchewan. I think we should, within the next decade, we'll have a chance to eliminate it, and maybe sooner, because we've been making a lot of progress over just 4 years, and if we get a little bit of good fortune from a resource perspective, I think that's possible. We would like to eliminate the debt and then look towards a futures fund, which our opposition talked about in the campaign. Not a bad idea. The only difference for us is we thought, first things first, let's pay off the debt.
Do you still look at, I know a few years ago it was looking at Alberta, and at the time Alberta cautioned, don't be too eager to pay off the debt because you'll forget about other things like infrastructure along the way. Do you still keep that in mind as you go forward in paying off the debt?
No, we do. In our first term, we invested record amounts of money in infrastructure, over and above the $2.2 billion in highway spending alone, which represented almost a 50% increase in our first 4 years over the last 4 years in highway spending. Then there's all the other infrastructure in terms of new schools and hospitals and municipal infrastructure. So we are spending a lot right now on infrastructure. We've got to catch up on some infrastructure deficits that are out there. And that's important. It is an important balance. Paying down the debt is always good, but if you pay down the debt at the expense of infrastructure, and eventually you have to do that infrastructure anyway, really isn't it the same way? You're going to have to borrow at some point to do that work, possibly. And so we think an appropriate balance between infrastructure and debt is what we need.
No, we're definitely a have province. I've noticed that in the 6 years that I've lived here, obviously. But First Nations still continues to lag behind. It is one of the fastest growing segments, but it's also locked into a poverty type situation. There's something that you said in the leadership debate when asked about whether to give them a separate piece of the pie. We're going to run the clip right now. If we could just look at that really quickly.
We simply do not support a special resource revenue sharing deal for any group, First Nations or any other group, and the reason is because those resources belong to everyone.
All right, so that was your statement there, and not wanting to give them a separate piece of the pie. Do you still stand by that, and is there a different way that you would approach it?
No, I wouldn't approach it another way. The natural resource revenue of the province belongs by definition to everyone. About a year ago, we fought against the potash takeover, making the case that the natural resources of the province belong to everyone. They belong to everyone equally. We do need to deal with issues with respect to First Nations and Métis people in this province. I think the last budget was a significant increase in First Nations and Métis relations. For the first time ever, the first time in a generation, the government included First Nations in a forest management allocation to allocate part of the forest to First Nations, and then provided some assistance for them to establish businesses, to be a part of a reanimated forestry business now that the pulp mill is opening up again, and the mill in Big River as well. And we're investing in initiatives to close the education outcomes between non-Aboriginal and Aboriginal. So case by case and project by project, we are working on these issues. We need to work on them. But no, as long as we're the government, there won't be a special deal for any group, again, not whether it's First Nations or any other group, because of the definition for us of what those resources are, which is that they're shared and owned equally by all the people of the province.
All right, we have so much more to get to, more we want to put you on the hot seat for, but we will continue when we come back. Stay with us.
Welcome back to our year in review with Premier Brad Wall. Now, Mr. Premier, this was a really interesting tweet that you threw out there. It was maybe a month or so ago, a month and a half. I think a lot of people actually echoed your sentiment when you made the comment about SaskTel and some of the problems that they were having with 4G. Why social? Why did you use a social network to get that message out?
Well, I think it's an avenue that can be pretty useful in terms of starting a public dialogue. I remember during the federal election, I would tweet about issues being raised in that campaign, specifically the debate. They were trying to decide who would be in the televised debate federally. I remember tweeting out, our election's coming up. We know the date because we have that now, set election legislation. So, I asked the question over Twitter, what do you think of of who should be in our debate when it happens, and we got a lot of feedback. And we had a lot of feedback off of the tweet that you're referencing because people were frustrated. We have a great telco, a great telephone company in SaskTel. There's no question about it, and great people that work there. But we also have a fast-growing province, and we know that every single telephone utility in the country is under a lot of stress to keep up with the demand, especially because of the massive amounts of downloading now that's happening, and everyone with a PDA, everyone's got the devices, and they're using them constantly. So we did get a lot of discussion going, and I think that is important for people to be engaged. This is a Crown corporation; it's theirs, and we know that SaskTel has a plan to deal with the growth, and they're investing in infrastructure, and they've got mobile towers and permanent towers, and they're doing what they can to keep up with a very fast-growing demand that we see for the service.
You do tweet a lot, not just about frustrations, not just about politics. You tweet about family things that you're doing. Sports seems to be a big topic with you. First of all, all of those are your own tweets?
They are. There's one occasion, there was one occasion this week when I was going into a meeting, I beg your pardon, several weeks ago, we were meeting with the ambassador from Indonesia, and I wanted to let folks know that we were doing that and about Indonesia's importance to Saskatchewan, growing importance as a trading partner. So I didn't have time to actually word that one myself, but I said, let's tweet out that we were there and something about our relationship, but almost all of them I tweet. Do
you worry that you're being too casual with the public, or is that what you want? You want to be sort of the everyday guy, and you want to be able to connect to the average person?
I don't tweet. I don't tweet a lot about personal or family stuff. Actually, if there is personal stuff, it's mostly the pain I'm experiencing with teams that I cheer for, because there are certain lines that there are certain areas you want to keep out of the public purview, out of the public view. For the sake of family. So we don't do too much of that. But I think it's an interesting way for people to get a glimpse of what's going on. And it's a good way to vent in the case of your team losing in the last minute when it should have won. There's some therapy in venting on Twitter. Now, although there's not much therapy in everyone piling on, including a lot from the media who seem to take a pleasure or some joy out of other people's pain.
Yeah, Lee Jones took a shot at you with your football team, and we have to apologize for that, certainly. But the personal touches, maybe you may not talk about your family life personally, but you certainly have a personable way of getting your message out there. I mean, we saw it on a national scale with the BHP thing. Anybody in this province knows you just seem to be able to connect with the common man. Is that just something you were born with? Did you work on it?
I don't know. We all are. That's who we are, isn't it? And I've always said to our government, and even to cabinet, I've said, in the things that we do and the things that we say, are we reflecting the values of Saskatchewan people back to them? Because it's not all about sort of taking the temperature of what the people want, just doing that all the time. I understand that sometimes leadership is making some tougher decisions that may not be that politically popular at the time, but I think it's important for us. We work for the people of the province. I think it's important for us to be reflecting on what are the values of Saskatchewan people and what would they like to see in their government. And we do that imperfectly. Sometimes we make mistakes. We fall down in that, and not necessarily being in tune with what people in this province would like to see, I think, from their government. But that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. And like I said, it's an imperfect process, but that's the direction we try to go.
All right, we will wrap up our year-end interview with Premier Brad Wall when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to our year-end interview with Premier Brad Wall. Okay, we're going to play a little bit of a word game.
Uh-oh.
We're going to give you a word or two,
Yes.
and in 3 words or less, you have to give us your immediate reaction.
What could go wrong?
Nothing at all. You ready to play?
Sure.
Nuclear power.
Not quite right for the province yet, but good for the province because we sell a lot of uranium.
3 words or less.
Yeah, we got to. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, 3 words or less?
Oh, yeah.
So I failed the first one.
You feel
Carry on.
Failing grade for the first one.
We'll give you another shot.
Second one, Dwayne Lingenfelter.
Good luck in future.
That was close.
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 Does
Okay.
in count as a word?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a little long, but still that's
doing-
a C.
doing good.
You're up to a C grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Progressive conservatives.
No longer in existence. Well, that's not true.
All right, next
Still
one.
around.
Next one, polls.
Snapshot in time. Snapshot in time.
This isn't Twitter, it's okay. Political operatives.
Trusted staff.
Leadership.
Striving for it every day.
Family.
The most important thing.
Millennials.
Millennials?
Yeah.
Like from Star Wars? Millennial Falcon?
I like it. Yeah, that's good.
They only come around rarely. How about that?
Okay,
Not the Falcon, the Millennial.
Yes.
Yeah.
this is a good one. Wayne Mantica.
Where's the cookies?
Where's our stories? That's what we usually say.
Where's the food?
Yeah. Okay. You hit a home run on that last one for sure. Now give us a little snapshot. You don't like to tweet a lot about your personal life,
Right.
but very briefly.
Sure.
What's it? Can you go to the grocery store?
Oh
and
yeah,
just
Swift
buy a
Current's
loaf of
great
bread?
for that. And this is obviously this is where a lot of people get their news in Swift Current area. They get it from 6 o'clock, and so I can say thank you to them through you. They are great. There's questions that come up. I get my best advice in the produce section at Safeway or wherever we're at, and people are very good to our family. They know that that's home, and they're still working. I'm the MLA for Swift Current, so people have constituency concerns, and so they'll talk to me about them. They should, and they do. But it's they're wonderful that way, and we're so grateful.
Time now for your Christmas greeting.
Well, just let me say on behalf of Tammy and Megan and Coulter and Faith that we're obviously very grateful for the generosity of the province towards us, and we want to wish everyone a happy and healthy and prosperous new year.
And we wish you and your family all the best. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thanks very much. Happy New Year.
Pleasure.
And that concludes our year-end interview with Premier Brad Wall. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.